So now moving on. So we touched a bit on tips and tricks like do's and don'ts. You mentioned about good documentation. What are the best practices or good set of good tips and tricks of maintaining a good boilerplate code? I also agree with Hasid, like we don't have to care about whether we are doing a framework or a boilerplate. Just we need to start, right? What are the best practices? If I start from Asha.
If you take, let's say, if you are writing a boilerplate, so the first thing we have to do is we have to find how we look at when we go into another person's boilerplate to pick. So that mindset should be there, because when somebody looks upon your boilerplate, they will first read the documentation and also they will see how active it is, because they want to get some reliability on the code and everything, because still they couldn't go into code in detail. So that's also we have to build, and also we have to build certain things like how can I put an issue, how can I discuss things. So those things we have to build up front, because otherwise people tend to be kind of skeptic about it unless it's open. Not only the code. That's why I always mention not only the code. For example, you could start with, let's say you start with GitHub. You can start with putting a chat there. So all the discussions from the beginning, you could have make it open. So others can see if some, let's say they come and ask, they want to see why you have done this. But you can get the history and see what was the decision behind it. And even people can challenge it. If somebody comes and see this thing is bad, they can challenge it and also give their opinion. So that infrastructure we have to build. If I go to, let's say I go to Sachit's, they have developed a boilerplate. If I go to their boilerplate repository, and if I want to communicate with him, I don't know where should I put the comment, or where should I start the conversation. Should I directly send a mail to him, or should I start discussion in the GitHub itself? So that infrastructure we have to build up front. So it's like a convention. How you discuss things, how you contribute, and what sort of contribution that you can do. So the trace should be there. So for example, if a colleague will contribute to the same repository, then we should take him or consider him as also outside, not his colleague, because we can, if I am working with Sachit, I could say, Sachit, can you do this part in the code, and then the conversation just kept. Can you show?
We have something prepared
by Manoj.
in the end, yes.
So later Manoj will show some demonstrations. So these things are really important to build a foundation, platform, and collaboration environment, and those things.
You guys, anything to add?
Just one other request, just one other thing. You need to tell about it to the worker. Otherwise, nobody will know. Tell it as early as possible, because from the very early stages, the community will actually drive you towards what is more appropriate. There are so many ways of telling it. Past experiences, easy frameworks, we didn't tell it to anybody other than our customers or possible customers. Boilerplate.js, we used heavily Stack Overflow. Heavily we used. We had a team. What we did was we had a practice every day. Every team member will go and answer a relevant question on Stack Overflow, and then they will point the user. Why don't you have a look at boilerplate.js? Like a lot of architectural questions which were asked on Stack Overflow was answered by the boilerplate.js community. Initially, the few team members, but you can't fool them saying that you are independent guy and all. But you have to put the disclaimer. By the way, I'm a contributor to boilerplate.js. That's fine, right? And people actually get a lot of people respect that when you disclose that. That had been the main plus some forums and all other forums you go and post questions. And then you get the community use it. When they use it, they will actually post more questions. and when they post questions, you need to answer promptly, and that will start the momentum, right? And anybody searching for architectural question on Google, Stack Overflow has a very high rank, extremely high ranking. There's a very good possibility somebody will actually get into your one of the answers you have given, and in turn getting into the view website, downloading and using it, asking another question. So that's how actually the viral thing happens. That was that at that time. But today the modern world will be different, right? The GitHub community is very strong, unlike those days. Maybe Ashan can talk a little bit about how do you actually market this thing, right? Sending pull requests to other reports and all.
It's like if you take GitHub as, we couldn't consider GitHub as only a repository. Today it's a kind of ecosystem. So in GitHub, if you take an open source project, the community spends most of the time in GitHub, putting their issues in GitHub, also addressing and commenting for the issues, validating them in GitHub, also doing code reviews in the same place. So everything is kind of bridged together. So that's what they have been building. If you take GitHub, they started giving free for open source. And that was the motive behind, to get a large audience or community in GitHub. So apart from having this in GitHub, there are some kind of tools that was evolved and people started to use. For example, with open source, Travis build automation, which became quite popular for build automation and running test cases. So there are a lot of services like that, Glitter and so on, which evolved because they encouraged the open source, and they gave probably free licenses for open source community or open source project to encourage them. And also that became their kind of backbone to get more people being used to it. So that's how today's ecosystem drives open source. So wikis and everything is today, if you take a good open source project in GitHub, you see everything like this in there. Linking with the correct deployment platforms. For example, if you are writing a library, if it's an odd library, you probably should put it in NPM and also put a bash in GitHub. So those things are now conventional. For example, if it's .NET, you have to go to NuGet, and also the repository can be in GitHub, but you have to reach NuGet and also backlink things link in there. So that's how it's happening today.
So Ashan, if you have put up, could be a boilerplate or could be an open source library, the things that you worry, is it the ownership or is it the community support, or is it building the infrastructure to get better community support?
If I start a boilerplate, the first worry is, can I find it somewhere else? If that is available, then I should write it, because I should contribute to that. That should be the mentality. We shouldn't be inventors who is going to reinvent the wheel. So that's really important in the context of boilerplates. So if there's something else, for example, I don't need to come and write the Angular boilerplate, because there's a strong community around it which is already doing it, and I could help them at least by doing improving some documentation if the code is stable. So that should be the mentality. The things that I should be worried about is writing more code with less documentation. That I should be worried about. If I find a problem and do it, because then nobody will use it. Because they don't see how capable is the boilerplate is. So the most important thing is, at least if the feature, even the feature is not there, put it as an issue, saying that this needs to be done. So maybe somebody else can take it and do it. So that should be the kind of the mentality and the approach where you should start a boilerplate.
Yeah, alright, thank you very much. So I'll try to rush a bit. So we spoke about a lot today. We spoke about the advantages using boilerplate. Boilerplate itself is a good boilerplate for learning new technology, as I would summarize the discussion. And we spoke about the individual benefits that we have by contributing, and the overall technical thumbprint of the company, or the thumbprint of all of us in the industry, how we could work towards that. The final question goes to the panel, and maybe Anur is in the audience, but you can also contribute. The thought leadership. What is the competitive advantage that we have in this program? Right? We could use this in. We mentioned CA, we mentioned customer acquisitions, we mentioned technology selection, we mentioned and other stuff are like tech talks, workshops, university programs, etc. What do you guys have to comment on that? What is the competitive or advantage that we have if we drive this to the expected level?
Number one thing is the satisfaction. It's nothing, you don't get money, you don't get anything but the satisfaction. Because if you see some code that you are writing openly and see thousands of downloads, that's more than enough to keep it driving, to drive the project. So that's one of the most important thing I see in contributing to a project.
I heard that your DynamoDB library got 300 plus downloads in the second day.
Yeah, it has quite a hit, and it started 2 months back. Both projects we have listed there now has a couple of thousands downloads throughout last 2 months. So that's kind of a motivation to keep on doing things. And probably we could see in future some more libraries will get the hit because the community is still building there. So let's hope it will also go.
Yeah, and I think it's nothing like you can have marketing slogans so on in your website, but nothing like
This is
the
the
authentic, real thing working, and community is recognizing that project, and people are exposed there, and your team members are exposed, and they indirectly it's like a inbound marketing kind of thing, right? So it's more natural. So that's the best way of getting customers, potential customers talking to us.
Yeah, I think this whole thing is a mindset change, right? It's sort of like a shift in how we think. For instance, I think today what we are used to do is a lot of work in a very close environment. We don't sort of interact much with the outside world. I think that is something that has to change, because if we are to drive this as a thought leadership, I think all the major companies, if you look at Microsoft, they have done that. They have changed how they work. Most of the people are contributing to the open source community now. So I think that change we have to undergo. It's not overnight change, but I think we have to start somewhere. So this whole process, this whole thing, this whole initiative is based on that. So Hasit and Chatura, these guys started it, and now Ashan. So we have to sort of support this whole process. For instance, if we do many of us do a lot of university sessions, right? But we never share any of the things that we do in GitHub. We never start with GitHub. We never show them our repo. Right? These things speaks louder than what we can ever go and talk with them, right? So I think that is where the mind shift change has to come. If we can go to a university and start doing a session by telling them to download or fork our Git repo and start using that itself speaks a lot about how we do things. So I think this should be the mindset that we have to have going forward. And all of us are engaged in our projects, but I think this is something, as Ashan mentioned, is something that we have to do for us. There are a lot of benefits in doing this. Technology, you get conversant with the technology, you contribute to the community, you get if somebody use it. I mean, learning how to market your own repo is itself is a great experience, right? There are so many techniques that you can do. So I think that is something we have to start doing now. So we have to change how we work in terms of how we contribute to the community, have it think of this as a goal, a personal goal, and as well as a team goal, maybe something that we can do as a team. So I think that's how the What If team does it. It's sort of everybody in the team contributes, right? So I think we have to learn from them and start there.
And of course, most of you guys might be using third-party components, open source components in your respective projects. Are you encouraged to log bugs when you find issues in those things? Log issues, create fixes, create PRs. So those things, I think those things can be encouraged, right? To
Exactly.
increase the technical thumbprint of every one of us. So, so let's move on to our success stories. If I could invite Manoj. So we have couple of repos that are in operation at this moment.
Hi guys, and I think we all got some good insight about what a boilerplate is, and I want to just share you some of the repositories that we already have, and you guys can search all those repositories if you visit github.com/99xt, and this is the GitHub page that you guys will reach over. And there are quite a few GitHub repositories that we've been contributing during the last couple of months. And you can see starting from intern portals, serverless boilerplate, serverless release pipeline, and there are quite a few. Of course, interns have contributed a lot to these boilerplates as well. And you can see it goes on and on. So there are quite a bunch of boilerplates and plugins basically that we have developed. And I want to share you a couple of boilerplates and plugins that we have developed. The one that the panel has been discussing was serverless DynamoDB local. This is one of the plugins that we've written for the serverless framework. When it was sort of published while they were in their beta releases. And this basically, let me show it, yeah. This is the GitHub page, repository for serverless DynamoDB local. And this was basically a plugin for the serverless framework. And if you go to the branches of this repo, we have this version 1 and master branch as well. Basically, since serverless framework is developing rapidly and they are coming up with different version very rapidly, so we had to branch out this repository to cater those new changes and all. So we sort of keep these branches so that anyone can utilize the version that they want. And for this repository, actually, it went sort of viral, and it is now available in the GitHub page of original serverless as well. And this is the main serverless page, and if we go to the serverless repository, you can see that both of these two plugins have been developed by 99x. So they are being listed at their main repo as well. And the interesting thing is, guys, we get a good. The issues have been reported from most part of the world, and we are replying to them, and it is sort of really nice experience. And if I go to the pull requests, issues, and you can see there are lots of issues, and they have been reported by different people. So it is a really nice exposure for us as well. And this is one of the, actually this is a plugin for serverless, and there are other, and if I go to the NPM stats, so during these couple of months we got like 3,500 odd downloads in NPM. So this is one of the success stories that we have in boilerplates and plugins. And there are other boilerplates as well. I mean, for serverless, we are developing some different boilerplates for cater different needs. For example, there is a GraphQL boilerplate in serverless boilerplates. For example, let me just quickly go to the serverless boilerplate GitHub repo, and if we go to the masters, we have this AWS GraphQL boilerplate that is targeted upon monolithic architecture, and as well as we have custom authorizer boilerplate that is leveraging micro service architecture. So we are planning to add several other boilerplates as well. So we have some more boilerplates in terms of Reacts as well, and this was developed by interns, and this is their repository. So this is a boilerplate that is done by using the best practices, and they have a quite good documentation as well. And I want you to show you guys the documentation of serverless DynamoDB local. We have written it quite expressively, and so anyone can easily look at the repo and get started right away. And so if they have any issues, they can directly report an issue, and we will be promptly responding them. So this is the documentation, and we have quite a bit of information there. So these are the basic boilerplates that we have at the moment, and it is, as you have already seen, it is sort of growing in a tremendous amount. So we invite all of you to contribute to these boilerplates and come up with your own boilerplates and put it under 99x. So it would be really awesome.